Welcome to A Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you from a tiny little business centre in the Radisson, somewhere in London. We've kind of blagged our way in here, myself and my guest, and no better people to blag their way into a business centre than my guest. My guest once said of me that I only open my mouth to change feet, which is probably true in hindsight. He is a man who was my boss out in Asia. He is a lifetime member of Saatchi and Saatchi. I think at one stage you were at Saatchi's longest serving employer.
I must have been.
He's a legend, and his name is Pat Brett, and I'm really glad to be getting to talk to him because he knows where all the bodies are buried. How are you?
I'm very well, Shawnee. How are you? You're looking good.
Oh, you're looking well too. What's happening in Thailand? Are you still out there?
Well, there are, when you look at Brexit and you look at the Irish border, you kind of say to yourself, thank God I'm living under a military government. At least things get done.
The king finally died, which was terrible.
He did. And, obviously people knew it was coming, but you can imagine the emotion that was unleashed in Thailand was incredible. That, in that great Thai way, which you remember, I was in a quiet little pub called Sports Corner. And a buddy of mine got the news on his Google feed at about 7 o'clock. But nothing happened. Nothing was announced. Obviously, the government were trying to work out how to announce this to the people without everyone throwing themselves off the nearest bridge. And at 8 o'clock, the TV screens all go blank. And you get that ominous white out of black typeface. And pictures of the king, and the king's own special song. Because remember, they had a Thai national anthem, but he had his own song, and they start playing this. And all the waitresses all stop dead. And then they make the big announcement in Thai that he's no longer with us. All the girls burst into tears. Oh. But the great thing about Thailand is they're going, we like another beer. And you've got to love a country like that.
I know. It is the most unique country I've ever lived in. There's something about
Thailand actually has the highest percentage of female CEOs in the world.
Our CEO there was
absolutely. And a lot of the point of that is that the real pro-female argument from my point of view is I actually think they're better at working than men are. Men tend to be irresponsible. They tend to focus more on themselves than they do on the common good.
Yeah.
And I certainly found that in the advertising business. The advantage you and I had was advertising is a business where 80, 90% of the messaging is aimed at women. And as a result, we worked with a lot of women, and you could rely on them more than you could on the men to get the job done. I'd say 70 to 80% of the people in advertising, certainly in Asia, are female. And what I noticed was that they dotted the I's, crossed the T's, they were reliable. They came back from lunch.
So I worked with you from 2004 to 2008, I think. So you were in charge of India, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines.
Yeah.
And we had probably at least half of those run by women as CEOs, right?
Yeah.
Your background, I used to slag you as being a plastic paddy, and you used to get very cross with me because you are of Irish stock. It's just your accent sounds wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm one of those unfortunate people who's got 100% of his DNA from one country that was born in another country and grew up in another country. And it's interesting you touched on that because I think probably the most interesting part of what made me what I am today, for the bad or for the good, was growing up in the UK with essentially 100% Irish stock. Both of my parents were born in the south. And
whereabouts were they from?
Yeah, my dad was born on the Sligo-Mayo border in a little town called Charlestown. That was the nearest town. He grew up on a farm. And Charlestown was famous for having the highest proportion of pubs to houses in the whole of Ireland. Okay, can't be all
That's where he gets it from.
Exactly. And I've had plenty of practice.
Yeah.
Then my mother came from what is now an absolutely stunning place, west of Castletown Bear in the deep southwest of Cork. The Beara Peninsula, right out towards Allarhees. It wasn't even a village, it was a little area called Urran. And I used to get taken back there for...
Did they meet in Ireland?
No, they met here.
Right.
They came separately. Well, my dad was born in 1913 in March, and my mum was born in 1915 in January. And they remember the black and tans. I mean, this came out that towards the end when they were going, parents protect their children. They didn't really talk about the problems with the British during that period of time. But they came over here before the start of the Second World War, and they met over here, I think it was a St. Patrick's Day dance in Hammersmith Palais or somewhere, and the old man no doubt had a few scoops and went and
So what did he do when he came over here?
He was working as a cost accountant, some kind of financial back office guy. He'd actually done very well in Ireland. He got 2 degrees from Galway University. Right. So one was in commerce and one was in English literature. But of course, there were no jobs for people like him in Ireland at that time. No. So he jumped on a boat and came over here. But he was never going to get very high, because you've got to remember, this is pre-EU, this is... Even in the 1950s in Notting Hill, at the bedsits, it said no blacks or Irish.
No black, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Yeah.
That's right, yeah, in that order. The Irish at the bottom of that order as well. So it was interesting growing up in that kind of background, because my mother worked over here as a nurse. She was nursing British soldiers during the war. But they were never sort of allowed to forget that they were really Irish, okay, and potentially a danger to... the empire. I mean, if you remember from your Irish history, every time Britain was at war, then the Irish question would be stirred up yet again. So, from my point of view and my brother's point of view, we grew up in this kind of little bubble, this little Irish bubble in South London. All their friends were Irish. All their friends went to the same church, and we grew up in that environment. It wasn't really till I went to university I actually started meeting English people.
Were you brought up to you were Irish when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, no question about it. I mean, they would sit us down in front of the TV to watch the Queen's speech and all that sort of stuff, but there was a lot of never forget your Irish kind of stuff. And both my brother and I were altar boys. The church played a huge role in your life. And I think the circumstances when you're growing up in Ireland is whether you like it or you hate it, you're all in the same boat. We weren't in the same boat here. We were kind of in the boat that everyone else wanted to be in but didn't want us in with them.
Do you have happy memories of your childhood?
Yeah, I do. I do. Everyone says it was tough or it wasn't tough, but I felt it was very ordinary. We had a decent house. The end of the road was Tootingbeck Common, and like every kid, I think if you say to kids, "What do you remember about when you were young?" You remember the summers.
Yeah.
You remember the big vacations, And I'd go down and play football from 9 in the morning till 9 at night.
There was no threat or fear of anything. Yeah.
That's right. So I'd say overall, I've got pretty happy memories of.
Were you bright in school, or just?
Well, how do I answer that question?
Well,
the answer
one of Pat's other famous quotes is advertising isn't rocket science. I should know. I'm a rocket scientist. So we're going to hear about how you became a rocket scientist or whatever the thing that you did in college. But were you because you're a bit cheeky, so I would have thought maybe you could have been you just do enough to get by.
I was always one of those really horrible characters, and I'm quite prepared to confess this now. I was the guy who sat at the back of the class with all the troublemakers.
Yeah.
But I got away with it.
And you were smart enough to get through the exams.
Yeah, I mean, it's immodest to say so, but I was. I mean, because the results prove themselves. But I was by no means the creep who gave the teacher an apple.
Yeah.
I mean,
and of course, heaven forfend.
Well, yeah. I mean, looking at me and knowing me, you wouldn't believe that for a second. Yeah. And of course, the other thing is that I think the 100% genetic Irishness. I was brought up in a home where laughter was important. And being funny. I think you know better than I do that the test of an Irishman is not how funny are you, not how rich you are. You can always find a rich guy around the corner. Yeah. What's interesting is you find someone who's amusing.
Or a character,
A character, someone who's who understands the crack, and that's the environment that you're brought up in. And
you have to be able to do a turn. You have to have a song or a joke.
You've got to be able to sing with Danny Boy and this, that, and the other, and you've got to be able to sort of stand on your feet and say a few things. Yeah. But you've also got to remember, the English are fucking boring. They are. I mean, despite the fact that I have the passport, I'm not saying anything I don't think that's going to surprise people. They tend to be conservative. You go to a wedding, the paddies will all be singing and getting sloshed and dancing away, and the English will be standing at the side going, he's Irish. I used to go back with my mum to Ireland on the boat because we didn't have much money, right? And we take the train to Fishcard or Holyhead, whatever it was, and we get the overnight boat, and we couldn't afford a cabin. Yeah. So Mum and I would sleep on the floor in the bar, and of course, once you got outside the 3-mile limit, the bar was open all night. Guess where the paddies were? And of course, when you're 8 years old, you can sleep on the floor when you're surrounded by drunken elephants, right? And then at the far end, we get in a bus to go to. We always ended up in Cork City when I was going to my mum's.
So there's another 3 or 4 hours on top of when you're.
But again, when you're a kid, you don't feel it, right? And we used to go to the West Cork bar. And Michael Hanley used to drive a Volkswagen Dormobile. He was also the local butcher down where my mum was from, which was 80 to 100 miles southwest of Cork. I mean, it doesn't get more remote. The next piece of land was America, right? And he'd have about 15 pints of Guinness and get behind this Dormobile, the wheel of this Dormobile,
Well, there's politicians in Kerry who are trying to advocate that people who drive taxis and the other people down the country should be allowed to drink and drive. They're bringing that to the Parliament and everything. Well, I'd say that's the Healy raise if anyone wants to look at it.
Well, further proof that Ireland's more sensible than you. So that's kind of how it was growing up. And, I can remember going down to my mum's place and, they'd grab a horse from the field and my cousin Dorothy would jump on it.
Bareback and ride off on it.
Well, this is it. I'd say, isn't there supposed to be a saddle? Trying to sound, the British part, the boring formal British part will come out and I'd sort of say, I've got to say something here that's not going to make me look like an idiot. Aren't we supposed to have a saddle? What's a fucking saddle? And I was thrown on the back of the horse with Dorothy and off we went. And it was,
So you did the whole summer down there?
I did,
a few summers, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was basically every year. I did sort of like 3 or 4 weeks down in Ireland. And of course, coming from a remote place like that, the locals would walk in.
Yeah.
And they'd see me and they go, Jesus Christ, now you're Julia's son, aren't you? You look just like you're spitting image of your mother. Right, you know how it is.
They were from Cornwall, were they?
What's the my accent? Well, it's a Celtic connection. But no, so overall my
people
memories...
from round here aren't from round here.
Yes. You ain't from around here, are you? Yeah.
You're off my land.
But no, overall my memories are happy. And like I say...
Your parents very strict on you?
Yeah, No, they were strict on me religiously, but no other way. I had to be an altar boy. I had to go to mass. I had to go to confession. I had to do all those things.
Did you see any of the stuff that was going on?
No.
Okay.
I mean, one of my great disappointments, or rather kind of one of the things that's affected my confidence greatly, is I was never molested. I mean, I don't mind being an ugly adult, but it's a bit depressing to think you're an ugly kid as well. So all stuff...
But was there any sense of it going on?
No. Well, again...
Because a lot of people I talk to in, say, Dublin and places, they would say,
I've got to confess I never got any of that. But then I would suggest part of that is because...
Of course you were in England.
Yeah, but we also went to the same church the whole time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't exposed to the entire Catholic Church. I was exposed to one little church, and Canon Gilliard was the main priest there for the whole time I was there. And there were only 3 priests there. I mean, in England you don't need a shed load of priests to keep the local Irish, Polish and Italian community happy, right? So it's not like I met everyone who's ever been in the Vatican.
Yeah, of course, of course. And when did you lose your religion?
It started sliding away when I went to university. Well, probably before I went, to be absolutely honest with you. But certainly when I went to university.
It's preposterous. Yeah.
Well, it's great. The first time I met Protestants en masse, I was going to university, right? And so there was another Catholic guy there, and we'd say, I'd go, Terry, you're going to mass on Sunday? And quick as a flash, one of the prods would go, there are no lectures on Sunday. Maths and mathematics, right?
Right.
Okay. So they were all sort of taking the piss, and they believed in their Protestant God, and we're supposed to believe in our Catholic God. But you start thinking,
something's awry.
Yeah, and you then kind of go, hang on a second, we can't all be right. I mean, the Jews have got their view of who God is, and Islam's got their view of who God is, and you've got the whole Buddhist thing, and you've got this, that, and the other, and you got the Christians, and you've got the Vatican, and you've got the Protestants, and blah blah blah.
Free
blah,
Presbyterians, the locked up Presbyterians.
All of this, and you got the Mormons and everybody else, and you kind of go, we can't all be right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so is there a greater being up and out there? I've got my doubts, to be honest with you.
Would you like there to be?
I think I'd like it.
So you can imagine what Pat Brett Heaven would look like.
It'll look fucking cool. It'll look a bit like Pat Brett Earth.
You'd have to visit. Yeah.
It'll look like Pat Brett Earth, wouldn't it? Really. Well, my other great saying.
Satan would be jealous probably.
When I die, I want to be reincarnated as me, so I can come back and do it all over again.
Yeah.
So,
do you still believe that?
Believe what?
That if you did die, you'd like to come back and do it all over again, or do you have regrets, or would you do things differently? I mean, I'm not saying you're old, but you're retired.
Yeah, I guess we all. Probably not. No, to be absolutely honest with you. I mean, I made a very clear decision when I was young that I was not going to allow myself to have a boring life. That included the sort of jobs I would take, the sort of people I'd associate with, the sort of places I'd live. It was very important to me to get out of the UK. I'm trying not to sound unpatriotic, okay? Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, I found the UK a stifling place. And I found
Ireland a stifling place, which...
Yeah, I think in some ways there were advantages being Irish in England because you were different.
Yeah.
And you were kind of looked on as different. So you became a bit of an entertainer whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah.
Because you were kind of forced into it. But I looked at the English lifestyle and I just thought, I can't see this happening. I can't see the commute in from Surbiton every day with the mortgage around my neck and the 2.2 kids and
A wife who hates you. And all
Yeah,
that.
I just couldn't see that. And when I got the chance to go and work in Rome, I remember thinking to myself, look, I'm 24 going on 25. The worst thing that can happen is I hate it and I get on a plane and come back.
Yeah.
You know, I was young enough that I could probably do that.
I made a decision because I started working at 18 in an ad agency, and I was like, I was looking around me, I could see just all people cheating on their wives, and no one seemed to be that happy. And I go, all right, but like you have to learn. I said to myself, you have to learn from what you see.
Yeah, sure.
And it was like 1 in 2 marriages end in separation. There's no divorce in Ireland back then, but you know, I was going, well, I'll be the one that ends in separation. That's my personality. Like I kind of, I'm like, squirrel. Like I'm chasing after shiny objects. But you know, I made these calls at a very young age, which I go, that was pretty cool that I did all those things, you know. And I was itching then to go by about 20, 25 or so to just to see what the world looked like. Before we go to your Italy thing, what was the thing about your rocket scientist? What did you actually study?
Oh, so one of the great things about the period of time that I grew up in the UK was, and this is where the Brits are confusing people, much as they didn't like the Irish, and actually didn't like Catholics, frankly, you know, because the Queen's the head of the Church of England and stuff. In fairness to the Brits, because they are actually very decent people, they let the Catholic Church run their own schools. And what do you do when you're an immigrant in someone else's society when you've got a strong religion is you put a lot of effort behind inevitably, if you come here as an immigrant Catholic, you're going to be poor, right? Yeah. So what do the Catholic schools do? They focus on education, because the one way to get out of that poverty trap is to actually be highly educated, because then you have something to sell. And the school I went to, the Cardinal Vaughan Roman Catholic Grammar School for Boys, was a fantastic school run by fantastic teachers. I actually loved it. Without wishing to sound like a creep, I absolutely loved every day there. I really did. And
very few kids could say that around that time.
Oh, I've got to tell you this, and we were so fortunate to have these teachers. They were just, every single one of them was just absolutely magnificent. I'll never forget also I did maths, advanced maths, physics and chemistry in my A-levels. And the most impressive teacher I had was a mad Catholic guy from Belfast, Paddy McMahon. And this was his first teaching job.
It's a young guy.
He would have been 24, 25 or something. And he had this great Belfast accent. And I can remember him confronting some sort of 6'2" fifth former saying, I don't care if you tell the fucking Pope. Get back in line, you bastard. And at weekends he played rugby for like the 5th 15 of London Irish. So every Monday morning he'd come in and his face would be rearranged, right? And he was doing a PhD in physics. He was a bit of a Brian May character. He was doing a PhD in physics at Imperial College. And he was one of those guys that you meet as a teacher who's massively inspirational to this day.
Captain, my captain,
yeah. And he just inspired me with the way he taught. And he pulled me aside one day and he said, Pat, I think.
Also from Cornwall, I see.
Fuck off. He said, all right, I won't do the accent.
Go on.
He goes, I think you've got a good chance of getting into Cambridge. Now, the school tried to get 3 or 4 people in every year. Yeah. So about 5 of us sat the entrance papers. The headmaster would not hear anything about Oxford because the headmaster, Father Kennevic, had been at Cambridge. So there was no, if you raised Oxford, that was it. Right? Yeah. And Cambridge is the science university here. Yeah. And I took the entrance papers in 4th term before I did my A-levels and I got in. I was accepted at Trinity at highest number of Nobel Prize winners in the UK. Just got 33rd or 34th.
Did you went to Trinity? I mean, did they know what they were doing?
No. Well, this is it. Apparently, I did so well in the entrance paper. I didn't even get interviewed. I was the only guy in my year who was interviewed. Had I been interviewed,
I can't imagine you enjoying Trinity.
I can't imagine anyone not enjoying any university. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, again,
I never went to university.
So but Cambridge is a beautiful town. Number one. Number two, first year and third year, you live in the college. Okay, so second year you're out. But I did very well. I was very lucky in the draw for where you stayed in the second year, and I stayed about 50 yards away from the college. So as you'll know from later in life, Sean, having worked with me, the whole concept of doing fuck all from yourself started very young, very early in my life.
So you were interested. You managed to get into one of the best colleges in the world, doing what you were loving. You know, that kind of.
Yeah. Right. No, I didn't actually enjoy the course there, to be absolutely honest with you.
Was it difficult?
It wasn't so much it was difficult, they made it difficult. For example, I really should have done mathematics rather than doing natural sciences, was what I did, because I'm not really a practical person. And you had to do 3 practical subjects in mathematics in that side. So And the physics lab was miles outside town, so I never went there. I mean, the chemistry lab wasn't too bad, so I went there. And chemistry is always more fun to do experiments on than physics because you can blow people up and stuff. Just ask the IRA. And so I was okay at the chemistry side, but the physics side never got done. So I sort of stumbled through the whole process. Yeah. But, rocket science was something I did when I was about 16. I mean, it's all based on calculus, right? And calculus is one of my big passions when I was studying under Paddy and the rest of the guys. So it's not a lie when I say I'm a rocket scientist.
No, but also you're in physics and all that kind of stuff. You got your degree though?
Oh yeah, but I got a Desmond, a 2-2.
Very good. Very good.
And that was a fairly sort of honourable degree to get. And then, all of my buddies from university went off to become accountants and stuff like that. And I'm 21, 22, and I think I'm not going to be an accountant. It's not me. And I went back to my old student job all the way through my years at university, and even before I started there, my summer job was working as a road sweeper. So I must have been at one time the most highly qualified road sweeper in the world. It's like I go back to
the second road sweeper I've had in the fun.
Well, there you go. There's a
in
thing
London.
About when you've been a road
crack.
When you've been a road sweeper, you want to be a success in life, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I go back to Wandsworth Town Hall to see the guy who employed the road sweepers, Freddie Bird, and he goes, "What you doing back here?" And I go, "Freddie, I like my job back." He goes, "How many years you been at university?" I go, "Well, 3, and then I'm going to do a PhD." And he sits down in shock, because I wasn't, but that's not the point. He goes, "PhD? This country's going down the drain."
You should have said in road sweeping, Paddy.
I should have said in road sweeping. I should have said, "Freddie, I'm doing it in road sweeping." That's right. Yeah. The aerodynamics of road sweeping. Yeah. So I'm sitting at home during my 3-hour lunch break, which is another reason I like road sweeping. And the phone goes, and it's the old headmaster. And they couldn't get maths and physics teachers in those days. So this is, 77, 78. And the only way you could teach in a school then without a teacher training qualification was if you were teaching maths, physics, or chemistry. Okay? And they brought me back to the old school to teach maths and physics. And I did 5th form, O-levels, I did 6th form, and I did Cambridge entrance exams again for a year. And I only worked half-time, that's the only way you could do it. So I worked in the mornings there, and I worked in a crammer in the afternoon, so I made decent money.
Why do you think you had such a sort of a self-awareness? Because a lot of kids just stumble bum their way into accountancy or whatever, or banking. Did you have a kind of... Do you know what I mean? Like, or their parents say, "You're doing this," and they go and do it. And
in fairness,
40 years later, they go, "What the fuck just happened?"
In fairness to my parents, they never said to me, "You should do this." These are 2 paddies out of the bog field, so, in Ireland.
I must have been very proud of you.
Well, that's my point. I mean, in fact, I got the Cambridge. If I said I want to go and play for the Harlem Globetrotters, they said, "Okay, no problem." But they were just running up and down the street saying, "Our son's."
Was your brother equally academic, or?
Yeah, he was. He went to Imperial.
Okay, right.
And I think
they're going job done. That was pretty good by us, right?
Well, absolutely.
Your parents,
yeah. I think very much so, and he's done extremely well as well. But it wasn't so much that I was self-aware. If you've gone into a place like Cambridge and you've met all the kids from the private schools, you realise that by default, somehow you're on the same conveyor belt. So all these public school guys were heading straight from Cambridge to the city on the train to become accountants, play polo with their mates and everything.
Yeah.
And I wasn't against them.
Or join JWT.
Yeah, or join JWT. And I just didn't fancy that. And then so I did my year teaching. I was thinking about it. I couldn't have become an accountant. It just wouldn't have. It just wouldn't have worked.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And then I almost joined IBM, but they were just too American for me. They gave me a mathematical test, and the girl who gave it to me, it was like a multiple choice thing. Came back and said, "Oh, you're the first person I've ever seen who's finished this." So I'm obviously not as thick as I see. I turned them down, and they went ballistic. But the reason I turned them down was very easy. They gave me the IBM Executives Handbook, and it said in there, on July the 5th every year, brackets, the day after US Independence Day, you will go to the IBM Sports Ground with your family. It's compulsory, and that is one day in a year you can take your tie off. And you will compete in the egg and spoon races and the 3-legged race. And I'm thinking to myself,
that's grand for...
You've picked the wrong fucking guy here. Yeah. Okay. And then my brother said to me that immortal quote as to how you get into advertising. He said, "Why don't you apply for advertising? It's loads of fun and you're full of shit." And the first interview I went to, the guy threw me out.
Brilliant. What happened?
It was Macy's at the time. Macy's something. Yeah,
Macy's Benton and Bowles.
It became Macy's Benton and Bowles, and therein lies part of the horrible history of Patrick Brett, because I actually ended up joining Benton and Bowles.
Oh.
So I go and see this guy at Macy's, and I've already got the job from IBM, and I've got countless jobs from Arthur Andersen and all these other Price Waterhouse. I mean, I had jobs hanging out the wazoo, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm much more modest now, but I was a bit of an arrogant shit in those days. And I turn up, and this guy's got the usual gorgeous secretary. I mean, you know, in these days of PC, I shouldn't say that. I'm just sort of talking about the facts here. This was basically... Well, it was
Mad Men. It was Mad Men.
It was Mad Men.
Yeah.
It was Mad Men. You know, so I go in the office, and the office is full of gorgeous girls wandering around. I'm talking to this guy's gorgeous secretary. And he did the advertising for Bisto. Remember Bisto and Gravy?
Ah, Bisto.
And he did the advertising for Tate and Lyle.
Right.
And I remember it was a Thursday morning because on the Monday night, Panorama had done a documentary based on how Tate and Lyle treated their black workers in South America, I think it was. It could have been South Africa. And the camps that they ran, where these guys slept in dormitories, had, as a group of places, the highest murder rate in the world. So in I go. You know how it is, Sean.
You lead with that.
This is my first interview in advertising, and I've got something of a small ego at the time.
Yeah.
I go in, and there is this guy behind the table who doesn't look much older than me, and he's one of the board directors at Macy's. And they've also got the HR guy in there. Anyway, so the interview's going particularly badly, and I, naively, I thought interviews were a two-way street.
Yeah,
and of course, but these guys are sitting there thinking everyone in the world wants to be in advertising.
Yeah.
The only person who wanted to be in advertising was my brother. I had absolutely zero interest whatsoever until I got in the office and seen all the girls.
Yeah.
So this guy gets onto the subject of cigarette advertising, and I can see that he's decided he doesn't want me anyway, and I've decided I don't want him. So by now the gloves are off, right?
Yeah.
And the HR guy is still sitting there smoking a cigar and puffing smoke in my face. And clearly this is to see what the reaction is. Yeah. And of course I should have understood that, but I didn't. And the guy goes, would you advertise cigarettes? And I go, look, I don't smoke myself. To me, the key question is, does advertising get young people to start smoking? In the current environment we're in, for the people who can't stop smoking, advertising is trying to switch them down from high tar, high nicotine cigarettes like Senior Service and things like that down to number 6. So if it was a low tar, low nicotine brand, I would probably advertise it. So this guy obviously was anti-cigarette advertising. And he says something along the lines of, I've never heard such a badly thought out, completely absurd answer in my entire life. And I said, well, look, if we're going to talk about the morality of advertising, I'd like to know what you think about the Tate and Lyle programme that was on Monday night. About how all the blacks are killing each other in your dormitories on the Tate and Lyle, sugar fields. Who you advertise, because I've seen the ads outside.
Yeah. Get out of my office.
Basically, he just goes, I've seen enough. And I said, well, this may surprise you, but guess what? I've seen enough as well. And I get up and I go to leave, and by now, the HR guy has a late heart attack, right? Yeah. He follows me down the corridor saying, Mr. Brett, I'm sure we can fix this. And I said, well, there's nothing to discuss, right? Yeah. And I never got an answer saying yes or no. I mean, they couldn't even bring themselves to reject me. But then, interesting, about a week later, I was interviewed by a guy in his 50s at Benton & Bowles, coincidentally, because those two agencies got together later on. And this guy was exactly what I was hoping I could do with my life. He could speak 4 languages. He had run Bates in Holland for a number of years. He spoke English, French, Dutch, and German. Self-made guy. I don't think he'd ever been to university. Had been a marketing director of Two Towel Shirts years ago, and he was now a director of Benton & Bowles. And he was a really sharp guy. And because he was in his 50s rather than his 30s like the other guy, he didn't have all the testosterone to spit. Yeah. So I was really impressed with him, and they offered me a job, and I said, if he's going to be the guy I work for, I'll take the job. And so that was the end of IBM and everything else. Then, of course, I realised very early on, this is going back to 77, 78, that I'd signed on for a job that would keep me in London for the rest of my life, which had been one of the things I didn't want to do, because this was pre-people leaving the UK to go to international markets. And I was offered that job in Rome, and I went to Rome in 1980.
Without a word of being Italian, and you learned it over there, and you met Paolo, who was
I met Paolo.
You introduced me to very late on. He died suddenly. A great guy, and he kind of. Before we go into the Italy bit, because you never went. You went. That was Saatchi, and Saatchi you joined. You stayed with them for your entire career. Just go back to the sort of you touched on the morality. I mean, I know you joke and all that kind of stuff, and we have laughs about it. But one of the problems I have is the ethical swamp that is advertising. And a great example there where, one thing's fine, but another thing we've got, as Bill Hicks said, what did you do today, dear? Well, we realised if you put arsenic in baby food, that makes them sleep better at night.
Apparently it does.
Apparently it does. Possibly kills them as well.
Well, there you go.
But, what's your view, like, now that you're outside looking back on the sort of the hypocrisy of the business?
It's clearly there, but, one of the accusations that's always levelled at advertising is it makes people want things they can't afford.
Yeah.
But in reality, movies and TV are far worse at doing that than advertising itself is. I mean, it's a very complex argument because, things like deodorants and stuff like that would never have been invented unless people said, if you smell bad, you're not going to get laid. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's led to technological advances as well. So I don't see advertising as an entire industry as a bad industry. I just see it as something that drives demand and therefore drives prices down and drives inventiveness because, all this stuff about makes your teeth whiter, makes your breath fresher.
Yeah.
It's hard to criticise that. And, as I say, the underarm sprays and all this kind of stuff, right?
I had a bit of a problem with the fact that there's so many people's brains, particularly when I was working on P&G, just spending hours and hours wondering whether the word should be juicy or fruity, as if it fucking matters.
Yeah, but see, that's like trying to
cut it down to 3 people.
But surely you can't cure masturbation, and that's what it is. You've got a whole bunch of guys in the room with their hands on their dicks.
Yeah.
That's not advertising. That's badly run companies.
Yeah.
Okay, and I would say in an instance like that, particularly knowing P&G, whoever is the client in charge should say, "Whoa, we're not going to discuss one word. Let's just make a decision. What do you think in the agency? Let's just get on and do it."
Let's have a vote.
Sorry, like Brexit, right? So much of so many businesses are incredibly inefficient.
But then you were propping you were even the approach the attitude that big advertising agencies, holding companies had to Asia was appalling because you were making money for them.
Yeah.
When I went from your planning director over to, in fact, we swapped jobs. If you remember, Jonathan Daly I got his job and he got my job.
Right.
A billion to one chance.
Yeah.
And
two Irishmen, one who drank like a fish and one who didn't drink at all.
Yeah, so he didn't count. But I got over there and I realised this company and BBD, all the companies I went, they could work on a quarter the staff.
Yes, they could.
I
do agree with
twice
that.
the money.
Yes.
And better the ads.
Yes.
Right? But you were always getting phone calls last minute going, "Oh, can you get us an extra 2 million from wherever?"
Yeah,
and it was like we were running on not quite fumes, but like I didn't see huge wastage on 3 people doing one person's job.
Well, honestly, many years ago I was asked by some young interviewer for one of the media and marketing magazines or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And she said to me, "So who are your great inspirations in advertising? Who are your the people that either mentored you or you focused on or built your career on?" Was it like Sir John Hegarty and blah, 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 blah? And I said, no, it was a bloke called Peter Grant. And she said, "Peter Grant, who did he work for? Did he work for BBDO?" I said, "No, Peter Grant was the manager of Led Zeppelin." And when you're running an advertising agency, you're basically running creative talent. Doesn't mean you actually do the work.
Yeah.
It means that you hire very good people who can do the work very well. Yeah. And Peter Grant said when he was asked, what qualifies you to be the manager of Led Zeppelin? He used to be an all-in wrestler, by the way. And he goes, "I can't play the guitar and I can't sing. Well, I know a pair of pricks who can."
Yeah.
And that's what it's like if you're running an advertising agency. Yeah. You get really good people and you keep them motivated. And you keep them stretched because the devil does make work for idle hands. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I said, I had to answer a thing, what are the 3 things that you'd never do in advertising or in your professional career? And this was with Kevin Roberts, who was worldwide CEO. Yeah. And I go, I'll never work in the headquarters of any company, number 1. Number 2, I'll never leave Southeast Asia. And I'll never work for a company that embraces in any form prejudice as one of its ways in which it runs its company. Yeah. But the first part of that was very important. I wouldn't want to work in headquarters. It's because people don't do any work in headquarters. They backstab or front stab when things get really bad.
America was atrocious.
Yeah, it's just too many people and they just get in the way. It's like any kind of team, you get a bunch of dedicated people who can work together, who are stretched every day. And they will enjoy their lives more. They won't be bothered to play politics. And you build them in an environment where they feel that they can do the best work that they can do. And then you make it fun. Nobody wants to work in a place that's boring, particularly in advertising.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we went out of our way to do in Southeast Asia was to become a destination group. It would be great to go and work at Saatchi and Saatchi. When we go to all these award shows, they're always the most drunk. They're always the most happy. Yeah. They win the most awards. I don't know if you were there in Pattaya, Andy Greenaway phones me up. We're in Happy A Go-Go Bar and we've won Agency of the Year for Asia. And there we all are, careering out of our minds. Yeah. Now, people would say, "Oh, that's outrageous," or in these days they'd say that's inappropriate.
No, I mean,
I think that was a management tool.
And I think looking at you as a manager was for me great in the sense that you got out of people's way. You were there if we needed you. You occasionally had to go, "What the fuck have you just done, Shawnee?" But there was nothing worse. And by your own admission, you go, "Look, if you want my opinion, here's my opinion." But there was nothing worse in other agencies I've been in where the person in your role also suddenly reckons that they know how to, be like some football manager saying, even though I'm 50, I can still go on and pick myself to play up front.
This is just daft.
And also the entertainment part, it wasn't that out of control. It was we were big drinkers. We did go out. But I'm working in a company now. They're really nice. They're really sweet. They're very nice to their people. They're kind. But the kids today, and sorry, with two grumpy old men saying kids these days, they don't want to go out drinking, and I hate that. But because I remember times with Andy where we might work 8 or 12 hours a day, and we would go to we just go to one of the bars downstairs at Bokeh and just sit there, exhausted, and then something would come, and we just go, "Fuck, that's tomorrow," and we crack it there.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have to be in the office to crack it, but and it was it was great. I mean, it was I think also a product of the sorts of people that by semi-chance, I know you were the peak characters that you were hiring, but we did have a great crew of people.
Oh, yeah.
There was a great spread of diversity. As you said earlier, there was no. I never felt there was a gender imbalance that much that I've seen. I certainly saw more of it in America, and I also saw America as just flabby and arrogant you were encouraged.
Well, London, if anything's even worse.
You were encouraged in America to kind of, not me, but at say client service level, to sort of stab your colleague behind the back, and that would mean you would get on.
That became the job, as opposed to actually doing the job.
Awful.
And, I'll give you a great example of what I'm talking about. We worked on a Cadbury campaign out of Singapore. And the reality of life is, a brief went to someone like Bruce and Andy, and it was cracked in a day. And it wasn't cracked just with one idea, it was cracked with 5 great ideas. Yeah. So what was the point of having all the other people there? Because you get the right, really talented people. This is what they do. This is where their skill set is. Yeah. And they enjoy doing it. And so you get the top guys, you let them get on with it, and you keep them motivated. You make it fun for them, okay? You don't become the guy who comes in saying, "Where's the ad? Where's the ad? Where's the ad?" Yeah. It's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're better off, as I used to do in Singapore, sitting down in Hooters waiting for them to come down.
I know, yes, you do.
And it worked.
You occasionally walk in, you feel like you were done for your day. You come in, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm writing a head and shoulders brief. Can I wait till tomorrow?" I go, "Yeah, probably can."
Let's go to the
pub. Yeah, exactly.
And you've got to.
That'll never be. I don't think that's ever going to be the case.
I agree. I don't think it's ever going to come back. But it was a business differentiator for Saatchi's as well, making it fun, particularly down where we were. And it was very clear to me. Again, not working in headquarters, and the guys in headquarters never got their head around this. They thought it was about the politics. If you delivered the numbers, they would leave you alone. And you didn't have any of the big international clients complaining about you. You were off the shit list. And the one thing you didn't want to be on was the shit list. So my instructions to all my CEOs was, do not get me on the shit list. I don't want to have all the stormtroopers from New York all over me. Because I can tell you this, in New York they're not making the margins we are. Because they're working there with their mates and taking each other out to lunch every day. Yeah. They will always exploit us. We are the slaves in the sugarcane fields, don't you get it?
I know, yeah.
And the only way out of this is to make great music like they did. So let's make great advertising. Let's make the clients dead happy. Let's make our numbers. And in the meantime, let's have a bloody good time doing it. Because what's the point of spending so much time in the office if you hate each other and it's miserable?
Yeah. I remember because you moved the headquarters from Singapore up to Bangkok to also save a lot of money. It was cheaper there. But I remember when I arrived at Bangkok, Saatchi Bangkok, I just realised I have to just stand clear of all of these people and these Thai people running this business, because the Thai advertising we talked about Thailand earlier was just so fucking difficult to deconstruct. It had 3 jokes in it. It had fun. It had jokes we wouldn't even understand. And as soon as you started working with them on say a Western product like a P&G brand, the Thais started writing ads for me or you or a Westerner trying to emulate the rubbish that we were making. And I just quickly sort of said, you probably were the one who said it to us, just to stand clear and just let the and same to a certain extent in the Philippines, Not so much in Singapore because that was probably infected, you know. But
Singapore's more Western than the West.
Exactly.
The great thing about the Thais is that they are completely different. And I mean, Thailand and Japan probably have the two most difficult cultures to understand in the whole of Asia Pacific.
Yeah. They're like different planets.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not the same as each other, but they're both completely different to the West.
Yeah.
But what's great about the Thais is the Thais have a great sense of humour.
Yeah.
All right? So that they would make stuff that was really, really creatively incisive. Okay. Now, sometimes it would be very, very Thai and we wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, it crossed over.
Yeah.
Where it would have been funny to anybody. Right? So...
Sanuk.
Yeah, sanuk, exactly. Very important word in Thai. And so you kind of, it means fun. You kind of had to handle that whole thing really respectfully because it's a very, very strong culture. And if you go wading in there saying that this is all wrong, or this is unacceptable, or word of the moment, this is inappropriate, the Thais will go, I mean...
we have to include on this recording the story. We were having a management meeting in Bangkok, so all of our guys from all around the region, the Indians, and the Thais, and the Malays, were all coming in to meet us. And I couldn't attend the dinner that night because my girlfriend was sick, and you didn't go either. And we arrived at the hotel the next morning, and no one had showed up. And our guys had been partying all night, getting drunk in this bar at the very top of the hotel. So they have an outdoor restaurant that's 50 stories high, 63 stories high. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful. So you're like in a dream, right? Yeah. And they were. I suppose some of our guys were trying to get a drink, and let's just say, without mentioning any names, a phone was drunkenly thrown over the 63rd floor and hurtled to the ground. And it was a Friday. We were meeting the next Friday. It was a Thursday night. Our meeting went off okay. There was all this joke about how drunk everyone was, but nobody had mentioned the phone going over. You arrive into work on Monday morning to your desk, which is normally spotless because you don't do any work, covered in post-it labels. Call this person, call that person. Yeah. You can take it from here.
The guy was Deepak Okri, and he was the manager of the hotel where the restaurant was. And he was going to take out ads in the Bangkok Post, which is the English language newspaper, saying no hotel or restaurant should ever accept a booking from Saatchi and Saatchi ever again.
And the ad agency were preparing the ad.
Yes, that's right.
Freaked out as well, the can, Eric.
So I immediately got hold of this guy, Deepak, the manager, Indian guy. I said, look, please don't do this. I mean, at least let's sit down together and talk about it. And if at the end you feel you have to go ahead and do that, then I understand. But yeah, let me at least have a face-to-face with you. So I did the manly thing, went over there at 3:00 in the afternoon, went up to the bar on the top with him.
But don't forget where the phone landed.
It went through somebody's roof, who claimed to be a relative of the king. Yes, that's right.
Shattered on their bedroom floor.
That's right. Yes,
that's very dangerous and very.
It could have killed someone.
Could have killed them.
But we went out to the very sort of bar at the end there of the, and we bonded as you do, and we had about 8 double gin and tonics. At the end of it, he almost gave me the hotel's business, and the ads never ran. It was just came with a job.
The issue was that a lot of people would have gone straight for lawyers or straight for defence. It was indefensible what happened.
Oh, completely indefensible.
And we just wore, you just wore and said, yeah, this one, the guy involved, like, no one found it funny. It was a
very, very, very bad thing to do.
Somebody. I mean, you shouldn't have a restaurant 63 floors up where you can throw phones out the window. Exactly. That's done as well. What would you say to someone just starting off in advertising now? Give us the wisdom, some of the Pat Brett wisdom that you've learned over the years before we wrap it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how my experiences really affect the industry as it is today, but I think a lot of the experiences I had at a senior management level remain true in most businesses. First off, I think you've got to believe in teamwork. Everyone is stronger working together than working separately. You've got to remove the politics from the business. Politics costs a lot of money, and when any business is wasting money on politics, everybody has to work harder in an environment that isn't fun because politics doesn't make it fun. And I think that's absolutely crucial. Work well with your people and believe in what you're doing. You've got to work hard. You've got to try and do the very best that you can do. Working, you spend so much time working, you can't not put your whole heart into it. So you've got to accept the fact that it's an important part of your life and you have to do it as best as you possibly can. But that doesn't mean stabbing other people. That means doing it as well as you possibly can. Yeah. And the thing with advertising, of course, is everybody's going to see it. So you don't want stuff going out there that is going to be an embarrassment. You've got to put your heart and soul into it and do the very best that you can. And there'll be guys who are better than you. There'll be guys who are less good than you. There are some very funny comedians and some less funny comedians. Yeah. That's just how the world is. But hopefully you can learn from those people that you see doing so well. And surround yourself with good people. If I think I did one thing that was good in my position is I was never frightened of hiring good people. In fact, I realised it made my life easier. Surround yourself with good people no matter what you're doing. They don't make you look bad even if they're smarter than you are. They make you look good because you've hired them. Yeah. And you've had the nerve to do so.
And what about the world away from advertising? What about your view of where we're going? Are we going to hell in a handbasket?
I think, I think history will judge Western politics of this era very severely. You look at what's going on with Brexit, and it's just, it's to the point whereby I can't be bothered to follow it anymore. But it's just such a complete and utter mess.
Yeah.
And it's just an embarrassment. Nobody raised the issue of the Irish border during the 2016 election, and it is now the biggest sticking issue. And frankly, I can't see how they're ever going to solve that issue. And this is before I even get into what's going on in America.
Climate change, all that stuff.
Yeah, what's going on with climate change, all these things. The biggest problem, Sean, that we're facing in the West, I think, is democracy only works when you have 100% educated people. Doffing my cap to the Australians for probably the first time in my life, I think the idea of making voting compulsory is very, very sensible.
Totally agree.
We should be fining people here for not voting. And I mean fining, like they fine them 500 Aussie dollars. I'd fine them 300, 400 quid here.
Yeah.
So that we actually see, you can't turn around and say I wasn't involved. All these things come down to one thing: educating the entire population and making them vote. And I think you'll find historians will judge this period of...
I think they'll judge us badly on how we treated animals. I think they'll judge us badly that we didn't
the
work
irresponsibility
out.
of climate change.
Yeah, I mean we can't seem to move. It's like I remember saying something to a tourism client, saying we should be planning now for how to get people in this country I was talking to them about to not go on holidays by plane, to stay at home. Well, yeah, that's a great idea, Sean, but they have relationships with the major airlines flying out of the country. Sure. And I go, they'll have to go away.
Yeah.
They'll have to stop having deals with them because the airlines, we're going to have to stop flying as much.
Cindy Lauper.
We're going to have to go up with ideas
money changes everything.
We're going to have to go up with ideas where maybe restaurants can only put red meat on the menu 2 or 3 days a week. Oh, they'll never bother. They're going to have to. We're going to have to go up with some plan. Yeah. You look after yourself, keep drinking, don't ever stop drinking. We're going to go drinking now.
Thank God.
And I'll see you in the sister's way.
You will indeed. Thank you, Sean. Cheers.